I'm Lara, and I will be your moderator for this topic session. This session is being recorded. It will be available with all the materials by the link later. Please feel comfortable asking questions. Put your questions in the chat in our QA panel. We answer them at the end of the presentation. Please let me introduce the speaker. Yegoryan is a creative test automation lead with more than 10 years of working experience in the field of quality assurance, business analysis, and test automation. She led more than 12 projects from the health assurance, booking, legal domains. I pass the word to Marina. Please, Marina, start the presentation.
Yeah, thank you, Larissa. First, let me to share my screen. And hello, everyone. I'm very glad to see all of you in this great conference, and I hope that we will continue enjoying next hour together. So let me introduce the topic of my talk for today. We're going to talk about one of the important quality gates named test result analysis and metrics. So I hope that my 15 years experience will let me to obtain you the main idea of the topic and get valuable information for your further career development. So first of all, I would like shortly introduce myself. Larissa already did it, but I would like to say that my name is Marina and I am from Yerevan, Armenia. As I told, I have more than 15 years working experience in the field of software quality assurance, business analysis, and test automation. And I've joined the PAN family already 7 years. And right now, my current responsibilities is to set up and manage test automation team and processes within the project. Also, I am a resource manager of JavaScript test automation team in Yerevan location, where my main duties is to develop and improve each team member qualification, but from the technical and managemental perspective. So this is about me, and let's move on and see what we are going to cover in today's session. First of all, we will define the interesting question, why test metrics and why should we care? And during the whole presentation, we will try to figure out the answer of this question. First of all, we will try to understand what can be measured by using test metrics and when we will be happy with this measurement result. Then we will give an exact definition of the software testing metrics and its types. And I think we will continue our presentation with the most interesting part, where we will dig into the deep of all these theoretical statements based on the practical examples. And I will conclude my presentation with the success story that could bring you using test result analysis and QA metrics. So let's define the question, why test metrics and why should I care? Actually, here I would like to do some remark which I have noticed during the voting process of our talks for this great conference. I noticed that there are a lot of people who are interested with my topic, and this makes me to think that I'm not the only person who are interested with these questions. Why test metrics and why should we care? And I believe that each of us in different phase of our career development faced into this question and always are interested to have others experience sharing and get a lot of information regarding to these stories. To let you know where comes this question from, I would like to tell a funny short story. Let's imagine that you are an enthusiastic, energized QA engineer who just involved in this quality assurance industry, and you are keen on to do huge amount of testing activities, find cool bug, etc. And you notice that there are another guy who is sitting next to you and doing some sort of calculation. One question could come to your mind: how this related with my job? I believe that, yeah, it's difficult to compare real testing activities with some sort of unnecessary calculation, which you are not aware how can influence on your daily work activities. And probably another question can come to your mind. Maybe this is just time wasting. I hope that together we will walk through the presentation, and finally, in the end of my presentation, each of you will have clear understanding about the effectiveness and efficiency of test result analysis and metrics. And you will tend to achieve to your success using this approach. So let's move on and step by step try to figure out the answer to this question. First of all, let's define what can be measured by using test metrics. I believe if you Google, you will find huge amount of the metrics that can be used to measure the quality of the product or the processes. For my presentation, I have separated a couple of important ones, which I think are most efficient and common from the testing perspective. It's test time and cost, it's test coverage, it's the status of bug and effectiveness of the bug, whether they are valid or invalid. Also, very important measurement is to understand missed bugs by the test team, and finally, whether the delivery timelines are achievable or not. Once we have all these measurement values, we should figure out, are we happy with the metrics or not? So when we will be happy with the metrics? I think we will be happy with the metrics when this measured result against the progress, quality, schedule, and cost will satisfy our criteria. Let's move on and define what is a software testing metrics. It has some simple definition. It just test measurement of efficiency and effectiveness of a software testing process. So why do we need to measure it? Imagine that you have measured, for example, test coverage, and you have some value, 50%. What does this mean? This is just a number. What we can get from this value. Does it make sense for us or no? Yeah, it really makes a big sense. If this value satisfy our criteria, this means that all processes and all rules that we follow so far are good, and we should keep it and move forward. But if this value is not satisfying our criteria, then we need to make a decision for the next phase of the activities. And against this, we should create some sort of improvements plan. Another important thing to measure the metrics is to have some proof of claims or prediction. What does this mean? This means that if you will have all these metrics from the beginning of your project always on your track and keeping eyes on that, you can have some prediction and evaluate the risk. So evaluating this risk can make you to avoid having some dangerous or trouble situation and have some sort of problems in the production or with the client. And the final reason to measuring the metrics could be, why not, to make fundamental changes against these measurement values in your processes or technology changes. What about the types? I think in general, we can differentiate three types of the metrics: product, process, and project. Process metrics can be used to improve the process efficiency of the software development lifecycle. Product metrics evaluating the quality of the product. And the project metrics can be used to measure the efficiency of a project team or any testing tools being used by the team members. Actually, this is all theoretical statements in a short. What are the test automation measurement, why we need that? So let's dig into the deep and try to figure out all these theoretical statements based on the practical exercises. To not make you boring, I have decided to create some sort of situational problem. And against this problem, try to do some sort of calculation. And based on these measured values, to find out the reason and make appropriate decision for the improvement plan. So let's move on and create our first problem. What if you have a big problem? You released your application into the production, and after some time you get clients dissatisfaction due to some defects which were found by them in the production. And I would say that this defect has a big impact on their business value. So the person who are responsible for the quality of the product will be asked a huge amount of questions why this happened and how we will be able to prevent this. What are the next steps to improve the situation? So all of these questions should be gathered and try to figure out the answer for all of them. Me, for example, as a responsible person from the QA perspective, to measure the impact that missed by the QA team, the first measurement that I will do, I will calculate defect containment. What does this test measurement matrix means? It's a deviation of pre-release bugs into the total number of bugs which were found before and after the release. And if this percentage is less than 95%, then we have a problem here. It means that we have a big number of failures which were missed by the QA team. We need to dig into the deep and find out the reason. The reason could be different. I have separated two parts of the reason, non-technical and technical. From the non-technical part, it could be missing of test strategy and approaches, low level of test coverage, too many bugs in backlog, bad requirements, miscommunication between the team members, QA member productivity. And the technical perspective, it could be missing of unit tests, sanity check before the deployment, bad designed automated script, or bad implementation. The issue could be also some sort of design or architectural issues. If we will have a look on all of these reasons, maybe we can lose somewhere to detect where exactly we have the problem. So to spend your time efficiently, maybe you have to do some more calculation to find a correct path or direction where exactly you have this problem and apply appropriate solution for that. So let's move on and do some more calculation for that. The first thing next that a QA member will do, I think, it's measuring the test case coverage. What does this mean? I think it's a very simple formula and probably most of you are aware of this. It's a total number of requirements mapped to the test case is divided into the total number of requirements. And if this deviation percentage is less than 90%, then we have a problem with our test case coverage. So it means that we have a problem indicator and it's showing that we need to dig into deep into this direction and find out the reason. What could be the reason? Not all related paths are covered. What this means? Let me to bring an example. What do you have some sort of requirement or acceptance criteria where it tells you? You have an input value which allow you to insert some sort of input from 0 to 50 chars. And you have two types of two test cases for that. You are checking input behavior with 0 characters and with 50 characters. What if the user will copy paste some text which has more than 50 characters in it? You missed this test case, so you didn't check it, and probably your application could have a problem with this. And this possible situation can happen in production and defect found after the release. So to solve this solution, always is encouraged to use black box test design techniques such as boundary value analysis, equivalent partitioning, decision table, and etc. These are best practices to design test cases. Also, I will advise to apply some data-driven approach in your test automation, which assume to check one simple behavior using multiple variation of test data types, test data. Let's move on and see what could be the next reason. No mapping test case with the requirement. There were situations that we can have application where we don't have well-documented requirements or user story. And all information regarding to expected behaviors are in our mind. So what this assume? This assume that in some places and somewhere you can lose somewhere and miss some sort of importance validation from the testing perspective. So to avoid this situation, as a solution could probably will be good to have well-documented requirement. But from the testing perspective, I would advise to always, in this kind of situation, try to have some sort of checklist or some traceability metrics where you will have some sort of expected behavior for the components and all test coverage that will be tested against this behavior. And probably will be good after this have some organized review session and get a sign off from the business team. So in this way you will avoid to have a conflict or some failure in the future. The next reason that could be for this problem indicator is too many trashes and out of scope items in test cases. Let's understand when this situation can happen. Imagine that you have some sort of behavior in your application and some period of time client making decision to do some fundamental changes there. It assumes some sort of new requirements and new test cases for them. If you will not go and maintain your existing test cases, you will have some conflict situation with the new one and the old one. So it's always, I would advise to maintain and keep your test case up to date to avoid to have this conflict in your processes. So let's move on and understand what else can be measured to find out another direction of the cause of our main failure that we have defined in the beginning. This is somehow process metrics, which is evaluating test case creation and execution productivity. The formula, again, very simple. It's a number of test cases divided into the effort which were spent for test case or test preparation or execution. If after the calculation you figure out that for each test case creation or execution, you or your team member are spending more than 2 hours, then it's very dangerous. You think to have to pay more attention here, find out the reason, and apply appropriate solution for them. Let's see what could be the problem. Lack of the user's test case creation techniques. Again, I have already mentioned about this. This is the core thing and start point when we are doing test case creation. If we are not using best practices and all these black box techniques, black box techniques in our test case design stage, then probably there is a possibility that we will have a problem in different area. For example, if you have some complex requirement where for different stages the application behavior is different, when you will start to create test cases in a common way, you will lose somewhere. But if for this concrete requirement, you will try to use the state transition diagram, for example, it will easily make you to have with a nice view and minimum number of test cases for the big coverage. Let's move on for the next reason, missing of design test strategy. I think this is most important thing that always most of the QA manager are not paying a lot of attention on this, but it's very important thing. If you don't have strict test design strategy, you will have a big possibility to have a big fault in your test case creation, especially in the execution. Let me bring an example to have a clear view for this point. Imagine that you have some sort of functionality where it's integrated with some sort of third-party application. You are doing some sort of testing, and in UI, you are finding some unexpected behavior. You are creating a bug without understanding the logic behind of it, and this bug goes to the development team. Development team doing some investigation and assigning back to you this bug, mentioning one fix. So you are addressing this question to the business team to understand what is the reason. And you are having this big cycle, spending a lot of time, instead that you can have some sort of strategy for this component to understand that this part of functionality, you have to do probably some sort of service testing, API layer testing, or to check the integration with the third-party application to understand clearly where exactly these defects come from. So it's always necessary to have defined test strategy, what type of testing need to be done for this specific feature or components. And this will allow you to cover more cases with minimum action. Next thing could be bad requirement and misunderstanding with the business team. Imagine that you have some requirements and you are sitting down trying to create some sort of test cases. And during the test case creation, you have lots of questions. You have to go to the business team or probably to the solution team, development team, to understand what is the expected behavior and what type of sort of test cases need to be created for this criteria. And you are losing time for this communication. To improve this problem, it probably will be good to improve communication with the business team and make review session more proactive. This will allow you to detect issues in early stage. And finally, the last reason that could be a problem is productivity of QA team member. If this kind of problem has detected, then the person who are responsible for this team member need to organize some sort of training, pair programming, etc., to improve the performance of this member. Actually, to detect another direction of the cause of our main problem could be to find out the stability of our test execution result. For these purposes, I will make a calculation for the past test case numbers, for the regression analysis, and for the defect severity index. First one, defect test case percentage. It's a deviation of number of test case passed into the total number of test case executed. If this percentage is less than 90%, then we have a problem with our stability. Another thing that I will do to have clear understanding whether we have a problem with our execution stability or not is the regression analysis. Before going to the formula, I would like to create some situation. Imagine that you have some sort of new functionality implemented, and during the regression, you are figuring out that new implementation broken already existing functionality, which were worked properly so far. Once you are tracking these numbers, we are differentiating them, and against this differentiation, you can measure this regression analysis, what kind of impact has new functionality on the existing one. So the formula is the following: new defect in detected during the regression divided into the total number of detected defects. If this percentage is more than 20%, then again, we have a big problem with our application, with the stability of our application. And the last measurement that I will do to understand the impact of the all instability in our execution is the defect severity index. What does this assume? This assumes to understand if we have increasing number of the blocker or critical issue detected some period of time. From this graph, you can see that against this formula, if we calculate and find out that this number is increasing, then probably we have a trouble situation there. So let's gather all of these metrics and try to figure out the reason. It means that we have unstable application. What does this mean? This means that some new functionality implemented, but there are a lot of bugs there. Test environment is not always ready for the testing. To avoid this situation, it's always good to have set up continuous integration, continuous delivery pipeline, where we can add some sanity and smoke check validation before the deployment. This assumes that in case that some blocker or critical issue will be detected during the sanity or smoke validation, then this code will be rolled back and will not push to the QA environment with the blocker or critical issue. This will let you development team to be aware about the problem in early stage and fix it for a shorter period of time. Another reason could be too many major bugs in the backlog. Sometimes it happens that we are having some sort of bugs which pushing to the backlog with the reason that for the moment we don't have appropriate solution for them, or this is related with the architectural design or some sort of UI design, and we need to sit down and figure out how to move on. And sometimes there could be a situation that mostly business team is focusing for implementing new functionality and avoiding these sort of bugs, putting them into the backlog. But what can encounter this situation? This number of major bugs can be a reason to have all new bugs related with these bugs. So as a solution, probably will be good to demonstrate all these risks, this measurement result to the business team or all related parties who are interested with the quality of product, and suggest to have a stabilization phase to make a decision for further architectural design changes. Another thing that could be cause of this execution failure is best designed automated test scripts. In reality, that could be a situation that this execution failure is not the reason of the application itself, but in your test automation script. For these purposes, I believe that best advice is to have some sort of static code review process to increase the effectivity of your code and also improve manual code review process. And why not, in case that you're digging into the deep and finding that in your framework you have some major or core changes, you have to do some sort of refactoring as well. A similar thing could be from the implementation perspective, and solutions are similar. And one of the addition here as a solution could be to add some sort of unit tests. Let's move on and create our next problem. I would say that this problem somehow could be one of the cause of our main problem, but I have decided to differentiate this and make your attention to this problem because I noticed that it's very common mistake that happened with the QA team and in the setup QA processes. What does this problem assume? What if you have backlog trashes assigned back to the QA team? We have a QA manager who has all of these tickets assigned back into you, which he needs to sit down to figure out why they are assigned back and invalid. After sorting them out, the responsible QA person is detecting that all of these tickets are invalid. Some of them are duplicated, some of them cannot reproduce or won't fix or not a bug, etc. So let's figure out the impact of these failures. For these purposes, we had separate measurement, which we call decline rate. It's deviation of number of invalid bugs into the total number of closed bugs. If this percentage of this deviation more than 5%, then we need to have a look on our processes and create some improvement plan. What could be the reason? One of the reasons could be, again, the bad requirement misunderstanding between QA dev and business team. I have already talked about this and mentioned the solution that we need to be more proactive during the requirement analyze process to be able to detect defects in early stage. I will like to focus on the next reason. It could be the bad defect tracking. And as a solution for this could be to have some sort of defect tracking template and make defect review within the QA team. What does mean template? It means that you can have some sort of rules structure that you need to follow during defect creation. This will allow you to miss some sort of important information to put down into the defect, which will let development team to have clear understanding about the steps, reason, data that were used, and condition that's related to this defect. So it will decrease the number of possibility that developer will assign back this ticket to you. And why apply a defect review process within the QA team? It has probably 2 points. The first one is that this will allow another person to review, go through the all steps and information that puts there, and be possible to reproduce the defect. The second thing is that this person will have some information that this defect already exists and it's already tracked into your tracking system. So this will avoid to have some sort of duplication in the backlog. The next thing that could be the problem is the missing of defect mapping with the test cases. For these purposes, it's always good to have some sort of traceability metrics mapping test cases with the defect. If you are not tracking test case with the defect, so possibility to encounter and create the same ticket for the second execution time is more. And the last thing is that too many old and actual bugs could be in the backlog. For example, this could happen when, for example, you have some sort of functionality and you have created a couple of bugs related to this functionality. And developers is taking one of the tickets, resolving this defect, and against this resolution, some of other defects are fixing automatically. If you will have some sort of labels in your defect, then you can easily filter them out and find out all related defects with each other. So it can let you to do some sort of small checking on all of this related area and clean up your backlog. Actually, this is all that I have prepared for the introduction or for the general test metrics. And I would like to emphasize here one more time that my target in this presentation is not to introduce to you some sort of number of test metrics that we have in our quality assurance. The main target is make you to have clear understanding about the usage and effectiveness of usage test result analysis and metrics. I would like to also use the remaining time and share some piece of success story from my last project where I gained some success. They're applying test result analysis and metrics from the scratch. Here, I would like to pay your more attention that I didn't start to create these measurement values and keep my eyes on them once we have detected some failures. I've started to apply this technique and approaches from the beginning of our project. So this makes me to have some sort of prediction and avoid some kind of situation to have a problem or conflict in the future. So let's move on and try to figure out what I have did and how I achieve to the successful result. Simultaneously, I would say that I'm going to demonstrate it based on the test automation metrics to not have some duplication with the above mentioned measurements. So this is the chart which is demonstrating automated test case number vs total number of test cases, sprint by sprint. If you see in this chart, in the beginning of our sprint, we have some sort of manual test cases, but less number of test automated cases. And sprint by sprint, I noticed that the difference between the total number of manual test cases and automated test cases is increasing. This makes me to worry. And I did this measurement to create some sort of consider all risks, and I have created some sort of action plans how to improve this situation. And I was able to make business team trust me and apply all these changes. And the main idea was that if we will keep in the way that we are started, in some period of time, we will face into the situation that for the manual regression, we will spend more time than right now. It could be increasing from the 1 day to the 5 days. So I have assured them that putting some effort in the beginning will allow us to have to spend less time in the end on the manual regression time. It also comes from the methodology that we have used in our project. We used Scrum with 3 weeks sprint duration. This assumes that in each 3 weeks, we have to run this huge amount of test cases for the regression. And if this number for the manual stack is more, then automatically the execution time is increasing. So as a solution for this, I have suggested to include test automation effort into the commitment and into the estimation. So this makes us to make as a definition of done for some specific user acceptance, user story, if test automation cases also created for this specific ticket. So this, as you can see, help us to avoid this, to solve this situation. And finally, in some period of time, we were able to decrease the deviation or differences between the manual and automated test case numbers. Another chart, which is demonstrating the failed test that we have in our automation script, sorry. You can see that in the beginning and in the middle, we have some instability and huge amount of failure in our test script. In this diagram, it's more visible. You can see this red bold line, which is after some period of time started to narrow down. Another problem that we have in our execution, it was the execution time. In the beginning of our application, the number of test cases was not so big. So we have this small execution time. But after some time, I have noticed that once we are adding the test case number, simultaneously our execution time is increasing. And it makes me to think that we have a problem here. And after applying some sort of improvements here, we were able to put this in a control. Let's understand what was the issue and how we solved these execution problems, failures in our test automation. After digging into the deep, we understand that temporary solution for the known defect was related with the custom used framework by our development team, where we had the problem to detect some sort of elements in the DOM. So for these purposes, we have some workaround and have lots of delay in our application. Also, we have a problem with the stability of application. We have problem with the parallel execution, which was the cause of the test automation script problem, having a problem in test automation script itself. So what kind of improvement action we have apply for this? I raised this problem with all related parties with the team, and finally there were made a conclusion to stop using this custom framework and move to have this pure Angular application. This somehow solved our situation, and we stopped using this temporary solution in our test automation framework. Besides this, we apply some sort of sanity and smoke validation in our deployment pipeline by from the service API testing perspective and the end-to-end UI testing perspective. Another solution that we apply to solve the problem with the parallel execution is we did some core framework refactoring and test automation structure changing. Another good thing that we apply in our test automation framework to decrease the execution time, that we created our precondition using our backend layer, service layer. So actually, this is all that I want to share from my success story, which bring me to gain client trust and brought the business value. And I would say that all these well-organized process and managed processes led our team, project and company to successfully pass excellence engineering certification, which opened new opportunity for the company, for the project, for our location, as well as for each of our team members. And finally, I think that it's natural and we are happy when our job is valued and promoted from the top management team. So all of these criteria make me to be happy and be successful within this project. So I will advise you to keen on to achieve to your success, always using test result analysis and metrics in your QA processing. So try it and be a hero. Actually, this is all, and I think I have some more 5-10 minutes for the question answer session.
Okay, thank you very much for your presentation, Marina. You did really great. Your experience is so marvelous. Just take a breath. We get a lot of questions for you to answer. Just
Nice.
So let me just read it. Olina asks you, what metric is most commonly used by customer to evaluate the tester's work?
Okay, so as I told from the beginning of my presentation, most common thing that could show and could let client be satisfied is demonstrating that all area of their expectation is covered. So first thing that this is a test case coverage, I believe. That's why I have put it in the first of my presentation. And if you can assure them that you are covering all aspects of the requirements and expected behavior that they are expecting to apply in the production with the high quality, then this can make them to be happy. There are a lot of other numbers of metrics, but I believe if we are talking about the most important, from my point of view, this is test case coverage.
Okay. It was a great question. Thank you, Marina, for your answer. The next popular question was, which metrics can be used in agile process when we haven't documented requirements and sometimes we haven't documented test cases?
Yeah, actually, if we're not documenting the test cases, this assumes that we will have a problem with the test case coverage. Again, if there is no way to go away from the test case coverage if we are talking about the requirement and test cases itself. But what can show in general the evaluation of it was a processes or the requirements itself, sorry.
Okay, thank you. The next question. How are you selecting which metrics to use?
As I told, there are some common metrics which you have to use in general. Those are already which I have mentioned. But there could be situation that you have to do some more analysis regarding if you will dig into the deep into the evaluating the efficiency of their QA resource regarding to the test case creation. Like you can evaluate how long is ticket staying from the to-do column into the acceptance column or into the closed column. But it depends from the case and the reason that you want to dig into the deep. If you are keen on to evaluate the, for example, efficiency or productivity of the QA person, then you have to go with the process metric. If you want to deal with to evaluate the quality of the product, you have to go with the product metrics.
Okay, thank you. Just a quick reminder to our audience, don't be shy to ask questions, please. If you want something to clarify, please share your questions and put them on the QA panel. Okay, the next popular question was about from where I can get those metrics. What tools can help to get these metrics? Maybe it's such a duplicate one, but please maybe you clarify it concisely.
Yeah, no, it's not a duplicate, I would say. Actually, I've decided to put in a presentation, but due to time consuming, I focused on the effectiveness of there rather than to say where we can find these metrics. I believe if you Google, there are a huge amount of information, what kind of metrics there are and how you can calculate it. But there are a lot of tools that can help you to evaluate and gather all this information. It depends on, for example, tracking system that you are using for your test case creation. It depends on the tool that you are using for your test automation execution, for example, some sort of reporting. For example, my chart I have taken from the report portal itself, where against to our action, it automatically created those kind of charts. So this is a very good question. In case when you are starting to set up your project, it's always to pay attention on this question while you are trying to select some sort of tool. You should see what kind of metrics can provide this tool to you and how you need to use this tool to be able to track all of these metrics in the end.
Okay, we've got a lot of questions to you, so maybe just the latest 3 questions with the most popular questions do you answer. So the next question, would you include all test cases from previous releases to the regression scope of current release?
Actually, it depends, but it's encouraged to always, if you have some sort of automation strategy to automate your regression suite, then probably will be good in before each release, execute all regression all cases that are included in your regression suite, and include or valid and invalid cases in that suite. Other than this, it will be not a regression, just some smoke or sanity check validation.
Okay, thank you. The next question, when you said about test case preparation efforts, what exactly did you mean by effort? What does this effort include?
Yeah, it means that QA member sitting down and creating test case, and for single test case creation, he's spending some time. If this time is more than 2 hours for one single test case creation, and a reason I have described, it could be due to a lot of lack of information in the requirement, for which you have to go to the business team to clarify with them and get the expected answers for your question and start to continue test case creation process. That will take some time and will have some less productivity from the test case creation perspective, also from the execution perspective. That's why it's very important measurement, and you have to do that and demonstrate this measurement with the business team itself. And if the problem comes from the business team itself, include them into this conversation and improvement action plans creation.
Okay, thank you. The next question goes from Olga. If the source of requirements are only the user stories and all US contains linked test cases, could we say that we don't need the traceability metrics additionally?
If your tracking system let you to link existing test case requirement with your test cases, then it's already traceability metrics. You have no, you don't need to create some sort of separate document for this, like Excel or etc. But in case, in my example, it's assumed that we don't have some sort of requirements in the tracking system, and we have a problem to track and show the client the coverage that we are testing for the specific application behavior.
Okay, thank you. And maybe the latest questions from Satish Venkateswarlu. Static code review process. At which phase you do it? Before you commit code and push to the next environment and do the code review process?
Yeah, as I told, there are two sort of code review process. It's a static code review, which you need to do before the commit, and the manual review process, which assuming before merging this into the master, the other people from the QA team members, even sometimes it could be from the development team or other expertise on this field, should review the code, and only after approving it, it could be merged into the master.
Okay, maybe the last one question, and we should have finish it. The next question from Mikola. What is your favorite metric?
Favorite metrics?
Maybe it helps you that Mikola asks actually to have you invented your own metric. What is it? In addition to the first question.
As a new metric, I would say if you noticed in my presentation, I have demonstrated and call it regression analysis, and demonstrated the measurement value, which shows how the existing functionality is broken due to the new implementation. I believe there is no exact definition for those kind of metrics, and probably this somehow partially comes from my side, and there could be some sort of similar things that's doing the same thing, but I would say this thing is good one that I'm always trying to use, because it's always showing the stability of the application, which is very important from the QA perspective. If you have unstable application, so the QA team mostly spending his effort to trying to get it into the stabilest stage, and they are having less time to concentrate some or all other important activities.
Okay, thank you. That was the last question. I want to thank you. Thank you, our audience, for questions. We have great upcoming topics for our conference today. I kindly remind you the session has been recorded. It will be available with all the materials by the link later. But because of, unfortunately, lack of time, I would like to thank our speaker, Marina, for the excellent talk, and thank you for your participation in the Community Z, QAZ Days, and this topic session. It has been a pleasure meeting you here. I welcome you to move on to the next topic session. Have a great day. Bye-bye.